Hi, I'm Jim Smith. This is the 1000. We're going to break from our sequence of historical shots today, episodes, to talk to you a bit about the upcoming Canadian election for our friends who aren't in Canada. We're in the middle of a general election run-up right now, and it's going to be an interesting one because it's going to be one of the very few elections in Canadian history where the gun people are on the positive side of the campaign, where we've had some good news in the last 4 years, and it's something we have to talk about. You will, if you listen to the chattering masses of the media, think that Mr. Harper has done a terrible job on everything and stuff of every sort. But to us, he's been really done a few interesting things. He started off, I guess, following a lead started by the Paul Martin Liberals, who had passed legislation that would have really wrecked gun shows in this country. And gun shows are kind of fun. It's our social event where we get together. If you've never been to one, you should support your local gun show. And those were just allowed to languish under the last days of the Liberals. After the election, when the Conservatives were elected, they were also just not passed, not promulgated. They'd been passed by the House, but they had to be put forward in the declared to make them legal. Sorry, the legalese is driving me nuts in this. Mr. Harper just let it die, and that was a big thing. We've had an issue. I've had an issue myself where I've observed various bureaucrats trying to enforce the laws that were allowed to die, and that's an interesting concept because you cannot do under English common law by indirect means what you're not allowed to do by direct means. And it shows how difficult the situation is for the government, because even when they pass laws or don't pass laws, the bureaucrats tend to ignore them. We also had a few other small events that happened during that time. When the gun registry was canceled, the long gun registry, which I think most people were pretty happy with, there was some misunderstanding about whether that included the Firearms Act, and I've touched on that previously, and we'll go through it again and again probably as we go through the upcoming months, because it is a contentious issue. But it still was a step in the right direction, and something that we had never seen in the past, which was a pushback on repressive firearms legislation. It was a very important thing to do. Vic Toews was our Minister of Justice at the time, and he very abruptly put the kibosh on the bureaucrats trying to invent a registry that the government had actually done away with. We call it the backdoor registry, and Mr. Toews did something again I'd never heard a minister of the Crown do. Said he'd been to a number of gun shows, and all he saw was people peacefully and quietly going about their own business, not harming anybody. And that was an endorsement of gun shows that you don't see very often in politics. It's a big step. We had the new Minister of Justice, also say that firearms are actually a right that had substantial responsibilities with it, which I think all of you out there would agree with. It is a responsible position to own firearms. But to have a Minister of the Crown say that was totally unprecedented in Canada and very valuable in its own right. Then, of course, the Conservative government brought C-42, which did some interesting paperwork things. I'm shooting this on my birthday, July 20th. And July 20th, 50 years ago, I trotted into the police station to get my first handgun. A handgun I still own, a Ruger Single 6 convertible, as a matter of fact, fine little pistol. And I was required to get conveyance permits, which were to take them to the range. I was lectured by Mounties on stuff. It was a total pain in the posterior. And that's now gone away. If I have a registered firearm and I have the paperwork to do it, I'm granted the right under C-42 to go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to come back in another segment here in just a second, and we'll talk a little bit more about this upcoming election. Keep tuned. That's our episode for today. If you liked it, please like it and spread it around that way. Share it with all your friends. And you know, if you can help us out a little bit by supporting us, we'd really appreciate it. This is not a high budget project, but your support really keeps us going. Thanks.